In the early days of May 2026, tensions in the Persian Gulf surged dramatically as a fragile ceasefire between Iran and the United States began to unravel. The strategic Strait of Hormuz, through which roughly a fifth of the world's oil supply typically flows, has once again become the focal point of global concern. Recent attacks near the UAE's eastern coast, the deployment of Iranian Revolutionary Guard naval units, and the USS Navy's efforts to enforce maritime access have created a volatile standoff with worldwide implications. The situation escalated after renewed hostilities were reported near Fujairah, a key oil export hub on the UAE's eastern seaboard. Authorities confirmed that a tanker was struck in the vicinity, coinciding with drone and missile activity attributed to Iran. Fires broke out at oil facilities, and at least a few individuals were injured in the incident. These attacks came against the backdrop of a broader maritime confrontation Iran has for months effectively restricted passage through the Strait of Hormuz, citing security concerns and retaliating against U.S. and Israeli actions earlier in the year. The closure has disrupted global shipping, leaving hundreds of vessels stranded and sending shockwaves through energy markets. At the same time, the United States has implemented a naval blockade targeting Iranian ports, aiming to cut off Tehran's oil exports and pressure it into negotiations over its nuclear program and regional activities. In response to the blockade and ongoing restrictions, President Donald Trump launched a new initiative dubbed Project Freedom, designed to escort commercial ships safely through the strait. He said Project Freedom would ensure safe passage for commercial shipping through the strait. The plan involves deploying USA passage for commercial shipping through the strait, Navy destroyers, aircraft, and surveillance systems to guide vessels through contested waters. However, Iran has strongly opposed the move, warning that any unauthorized military presence would be treated as a hostile act. He said any foreign military presence in the strait without coordination will be attacked. Iran's position is enforced primarily by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, whose naval units, including fast attack boats, have been actively patrolling the strait. These vessels are capable of swarming larger ships and are often used in asymmetric naval warfare. Reports also indicate that sea mines have been deployed in parts of the waterway, significantly increasing the risk to commercial shipping. As tensions escalate, conflicting narratives have emerged from both sides. Iran has claimed that it successfully targeted a U.S. warship attempting to pass through the strait. The United States, however, has categorically denied these reports. He said no American Navy ships have been hit. Despite the denial, the incident underscores the high level of risk involved in the current standoff. Even minor miscalculations could lead to a broader military confrontation. Adding to the uncertainty, a South Korean cargo vessel experienced an explosion in the strait, though the exact cause remains unclear. Some analysts suggest it could be linked to mines or drone activity, highlighting the increasingly complex threat environment. The tanker strike near Fujairah is emblematic of the broader dangers facing maritime traffic in the region. Oil tankers, cargo ships, and LNG carriers are all vulnerable to a range of threats, from missile strikes and drone attacks to underwater mines. He said traditional routes are hazardous due to unmitigated mines. Shipping companies have responded by rerouting vessels, delaying shipments, or halting operations altogether. Some have attempted to navigate through alternative routes, such as Omani waters, but these are not always viable for large-scale commercial traffic. The economic consequences have been immediate. Oil prices have surged past $100 per barrel, reflecting fears of prolonged disruption to global supply chains. What makes the current crisis particularly complex is the existence of what analysts describe as a dual blockade. On one side, Iran is restricting access to the Strait of Hormuz, effectively controlling entry and exit points. On the other, the United States is enforcing a blockade on Iranian ports, preventing ships from docking or loading cargo. This dual pressure has brought maritime traffic to a near standstill. At one point, over 2,000 ships and 20,000 crew members were stranded in the Gulf. He said U.S. forces are executing the mission to blockade ships entering and departing Iranian ports. The result is a bottleneck that has paralyzed one of the world's most important shipping corridors. From Iran's perspective, the blockade is not merely an economic measure. It is seen as an act of war. Iranian officials have repeatedly emphasized their right to defend their territorial waters and economic interests. He said this is the last warning. The IRGC has adopted a strategy of deterrence, combining conventional military assets with unconventional tactics. These include the use of speedboats, drones, and potentially even underwater sabotage operations. Recent reports suggest that Iran may be exploring increasingly unconventional methods, including the deployment of specialized marine units capable of carrying explosives. While such claims remain unverified, they underscore the extent to which the conflict is evolving. The United States, meanwhile, has significantly increased its military presence in the region. Multiple aircraft carriers, destroyers, and surveillance platforms have been deployed to support Project Freedom and enforce the blockade. He said the military is assisting commercial vessels trapped in the Gulf. U.S. officials argue that maintaining freedom of navigation is essential not only for global trade, but also for international law. The Strait of Hormuz is considered an international waterway, and any attempt to close it is widely viewed as a violation of maritime norms. Despite the escalating tensions, diplomatic efforts are ongoing. Iran is currently reviewing a U.S. proposal that includes de-escalation measures and potential sanctions relief. However, key issues such as Iran's nuclear program and the terms of the blockade remain unresolved. The international community has called for restraint, with several countries proposing multilateral initiatives to ensure safe passage through the strait. Yet, progress has been slow and the risk of further escalation remains high. The stakes in the Strait of Hormuz extend far beyond the immediate region. As a critical choke point for global energy supplies, any disruption has ripple effects across international markets. A sustained closure could remove millions of barrels of oil per day from global supply chains, leading to price spikes and economic instability. Moreover, the crisis highlights the vulnerability of global trade routes to geopolitical tensions. With Shippy, NG lanes under threat, companies and governments are being forced to rethink their strategies for energy security and supply chain resilience. The tanker strike near Fujairah, combined with the deployment of IRGC speedboats and the laying of sea mines, marks a dangerous escalation in the ongoing Iran-U.S. standoff. As both sides test each other's limits, the risk of miscalculation grows. He said any unauthorized passage will be met with force. With the United States pushing ahead with its naval escort mission and Iran determined to assert control over the strait, the world watches anxiously. The coming days will be critical in determining whether the crisis can be contained or whether it will spiral into a broader conflict with far-reaching consequences.